You're on the record here on CNN Philippines. I'm Pia Ontiveros. A time for reckoning for the media as the president lashes out at journalists, fake news on the rise, and online news agency Rappler turns to the Court of Appeals after it is ordered to shut down. Bloggers from across the political divide drive pointed discussions in cyberspace. Followers define influence and power, but with greater power comes greater responsibility. As the political noise drowns out reason, what is expected of the Fourth Estate and how will it rise to the occasion? Joining me tonight, Communications Undersecretary Joel C. Egco, Melinda Quintos de Jesus of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility, and Paul Gutierrez of the National Press Club. Rappler Chief Maria Ressa will be joining us a little bit later on the show. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Pia.
Good evening. You're all smiles. Let's see what happens at the end of the show. But let's begin first with a little bit of, hindi naman background check, pero a little bit of background for everybody here. Let's begin with Paul Gutierrez, NPC, National Press Club. Many, how many members do you have in the National Press Club right now?
Well, currently we have about 400 regular members and the similar number of associate members and about 800 lifetime members.
When you say 400 regular members,
these are all members of the mainstream, mainly from the mainstream media, print, broadcasting, and television. But most of them are, just like me, field reporters.
Field reporters, okay. Yeah. But for example, so reporters halimbawa ng ABS-CBN, GMA7, TV5 are members of NPC?
Yeah, meron kaming mga members coming from those stations. Kasi ang membership ng press club is not only limited to the field reporters, they also covers yung mga editors, yung mga nasa desk.
Okay. And for print also?
Yeah, of course, mostly from print.
Okay, and you are still, of course, you are still a journalist. You
I'm with the Journal Group of Companies. I write three times a week column.
Column on?
Mainly on politics and other current issues at the People's Tonight.
Okay. Malacanang's, the representative of Malacanang, Joel C. Egco, I was about to promote you to Undersecretary. Yusek ba? Yusek?
Yusek, yes.
Tama. Ano ko, I was about to demote you pala. Sorry. Okay, but you are a former reporter, right?
I was with the Manila Times before joining this government.
Yeah.
I was
How long with
editor-in-chief
Manila Times?
editor, assignments editor-in-chief of reporters of the Manila Times.
Yeah. How long? How many years?
Since 2011, but I've been with the industry since 1993.
Okay, so 93 to 2011, where were you? What?
Manila Standard. Different newspapers actually, but I spent most of my years in the industry writing for the Manila Standard. I think 1997 up to 2009 when I was retrenched.
Okay. But now, as Malacanang, as a USEC in Malacanang, your main work is to propagate government vision. No?
Well, I'd like to clarify that.
Yeah.
I'm actually under the Office of the President. I'm Executive Director of the Presidential Task Force on Violence Against Media Workers, also known as the Presidential Task Force on Media Security. So this task force is the one handling cases of media killings since time immemorial. That's my primary function.
Okay.
So I only help the Presidential Communications Operations Office by being the supervising undersecretary for the Philippine News Agency.
PNA.
So I was put in charge of, what happened in the PNA last year. So I was put in charge of, cleaning up the house and all that.
Okay.
Improving the processes and all that.
There are many journalists who moved over to PR in a way or government work, and sometimes there is always that question mark, makakabalik ba sila sa journalism kapag nakapag-government service na sila?
For as long as you abide by the principles of objectivity, fairness, and justice. So that's I told them. In fact, when I was invited to join this government, it was a meeting between me and Secretary Martin Andanar in 2016. That was in June, So I told him, I would join you, but you have to promise me two things. First, is that you're going to deliver the FOI as promised by the President-elect then. And then, number two, that you're going to put up a task force against media killings, because we have been advocating against media killings since 2004 or 5, along with Ma'am Melinda here and other journalist groups in the Philippines.
Okay,
So
and
they gave us both.
Okay, at hindi kayo mahirapan kung babalik kayo sa journalism or being a reporter.
In fact, I'm still writing now. I am still maintaining a column for a local tabloid.
Okay. And of course, Melinda Quintos Desu, CMFR, Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. Just a little bit of background again of your organization to remind people, remind the viewers.
It's an NGO, it's private. We have to raise funds for what we do. And fundamentally, it is journalist-driven. After 1986, about 3 years after 1986, I felt that those who had experience, and I had been working since the late 70s in the mainstream media, and had in fact published TV Times, an editor of TV Times, where we watched television in a period when it was controlled, and felt that the freedom and that environment of freedom was not accompanied with a strong grid for ethical journalism, for knowing what is the right way and the better way to do things in terms of coverage, and who best to do it except those perhaps who have had the experience, drawing from colleagues in the media to basically pinpoint what is wrong. So what we do is press freedom protection, which was started in 1992 with a formal database, and the monitoring of the press, which means we write up case studies, which are now used by university courses, that show when coverage was not exactly the ideal way or even the good way, and probably the only profession that has an immediate feedback coming from such a resource that looks at it from the ethical point of view and the as levels of competence as well, because I think both ethics and competence go together. So one of the other programs is recognizing excellence and setting up the models of those who have done well, the best practices in the industry, so that the younger generation can look up to, you know, the way to go as they move up as well in the profession.
This is like mentoring for journalists also, and at the same time, well, keeping watch over journalists.
It's a watchdog type of a role, although I don't like using that word, but it's true in the sense that all we can do is watch and alert and put out what we do. We have no bite. There is no way of punishing or even...
It's just calling out people.
Calling out people and basically saying, you know, this was what you should have done.
Okay. In other words, it is because our job as journalists is to keep people, well, keep officials, for example, honest. So we should keep ourselves honest also.
That's right. And the model is quite a long tradition. It's the journalism review. That's fundamentally the base of what we do, because out of that monitoring, we are able to identify the best models as well as identify the areas in which they need to be trained.
Okay. The question now is, what is media's role in society, notwithstanding whatever administration? No? Ano ba talaga yung role natin? Is it watchdog, watchdog and fourth estate, or is it to be an ally? A critical collaboration, whatever, you know, ano ba dapat talaga? Let's begin with Melinda.
Yes, I think that is probably a question that should be at the base of every newsroom. What is your role? And we say watchdog because that's the most obvious thing. The most prominent newsmaker comes from government, because they are the most credentialed source of news. They have prominence, they have color, they have the power, they have the position. And so that becomes the most visible thing. But the purpose of the protection that the Constitution gives us is because this, as the fourth estate, builds up the capacity of the citizenry to become truly participative in the process of governance, of their own governance, of what they wish to come out in that society. So the narrow scope where we say, oh, we need to criticize, really needs to be enlarged in terms of saying, well, Actually, it is not only the critical things or the critical news. We also need the kinds of news that will say, you know what's needed in the long term, you know how federalism is going to work or not work, which is not defined in the traditional sense of looking at an event and quoting or citing what a source said. That's like the surface.
Yeah. So in other words,
Journalism
we're not
really-
just supposed to be doing event reporting.
Right.
no?
And the events, usually, if you look at the event is a reflection of a long process. And that is where much of the weakness comes in, is that we are not able to keep up reporting on processes. You know, we report on the famine, but we did not report on the drought that brought about the hunger in many of these
Okay.
places,
Okay.
etc., etc.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to ask that question also of Joel Eggo and Paul Gutierrez. And we're about to go into a break, but we have, I think, about 30 seconds. We'll go into the break and then we'll come back to you. But USEC, Joel Eggo, can you tell us?
Well,
For you, and you're coming from a very interesting position. You're in Malacanang now.
I'm a hybrid. Diba? So, well, what I
Dual
what-
citizen.
what I keep telling people is that don't be mistaken about anything. No, I'm still a journalist. That's how I still see myself. That's how I
Talaga?
still
Can you
treat
still be a
myself.
journalist even if you're in government?
Yeah, I mean, to
Hindi yun
certain.
ang sagot mo. Yeah. Ano yun?
I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to being guided by
Dual.
Dual,
I don't know. I'm not
still
sure.
being guided by the principles of, yun nga, you have to be just, you have to be truthful, you have to be factual. No, so the media naman
okay.
is not our. Well, I'm with government. I used to be with media. I'm still with media right now. Hindi naman magkaaway yan eh. So we still have a common.
So ano dapat ang role ng media? Now that you're in government, you're looking in a way half from the outside. So ano dapat ang role ng media ngayon?
Well, they still have. That's just like what.
See, sabi mo they. Okay. Oh.
From the point of view of a government official now, no?
Yeah.
So, speaking of being a journalist, now I'm speaking as a journalist now. I still maintain my column nga. Sabi ko nga, well, just like I'll take off from the many things that Ma'am Melinda said a while ago, no? So, hindi tayo kaaway ng gobyerno, no? In fact, we are a partner when it comes to issues like nation building, no? If there's an active
there's-
campaign against anything that affects the interest of the people, I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
public,
Okay, so
so-
hindi ka away partner. Teka, hold that thought. We have to go to a break. Also, we're going to be reading some of your comments via Facebook Live. Join us by visiting facebook.com/CNN Philippines. We'd love to hear from you on the record. We'll be right back. You're on the record on CNN Philippines. We're talking about the media's powerful influence and the corresponding responsibilities. Still with us, Communications Undersecretary Joel C. Egco. Rappler's Maria Ressa is here now. Melinda Quintos de Jesus from CMFR, Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility, and NPC President Paul Gutierrez. Joel, USEC Egco, we were talking about ano ba yung role ng media, and you said hindi kaaway partner. So ano yung opposite ng hindi kaaway? So ano, kaibigan, kakampi, what?
well, siguro at a certain extent, critical.
Okay.
Critic, no? We are seeing a lot of criticisms, no? Hovering around everywhere, actually. So, and those criticisms, well, they invite lots and lots of interpretations from anywhere also.
Okay. So
Because-
now that you're in government, what do you feel about media? Parang, hindi sa are we fair?
Yeah.
It's, ano bang gusto mo na maging, what do you want media to be like? You want media to be friendlier to the administration now that you are with the administration, with the government, or you see the value of having media like this?
Well, I used to say that I'd rather live. I was asked the same question before. And I still believe with what I said back then. No? Sabi ko nga nun, I'd rather live in an environment na very libelous, no? Then hindi ka pwede magsalita. So that's how I see it. Kumbaga, okay, speaking from a government official's point of view, hindi naman natin pwedeng diktahan talaga eh. Diba? So that's it. We are being bashed every day. Me too. From by perceived kakampi. So we experience the same bashings and all that, criticisms and all that. But it's okay.
Okay. Maria Ressa of Rappler. Maria, we were talking about, a very basic question. What is the role of media ba talaga?
Has always been to hold...
No matter who's in power, huh?
To hold power accountable. And power could be not just government, it's public and private, right? So our role has always been as a fiscalizer of sorts. And we gain our power from the people that we speak for or in the past did. Again, massive changes, technology, of course.
Yeah, okay. And Paul Gutierrez of NPC, what is the role of media?
Yeah, and so
Are we supposed to be friendly with powers that be or what?
No. In fact, if we have to be adversarial on certain issues, we should be. We should maintain our independence. And what I believe that as those in the profession, we have to help our people develop critical thinking in looking at issues. We have to help them develop their own confidence that they can voice out their concerns against the government if necessary. Me, on the personal level, I live by the principle that we have to praise whose actions are praiseworthy, and we have to criticize whose actions are worth criticizing. In our language, purihin natin yung mga dapat purihin, punahin natin yung dapat punahin.
Okay. Should we be controlled? Should we be controlled?
No, definitely. Before I became NPC president, I succeeded Joel Ego at the National Press Club, no. But we have a very clear understanding of what the role of the Presidential Task Force on Media Security and what will be the role of the National Press Club. While we are partners in solving instances of violence and media killings, we will definitely take offense if Malacanang would start saying, since we are helping you solve this problem, can you do this and this for us? No. We draw a clear line on how far the National Press Club will help the government in solving certain problems affecting the media.
How far the National Press Club will help government in solving? So when it comes to like media killing, for example.
Yeah. Because we realize that we have been calling for the government to address media killing for a very long time already. In fact, even going back to the martial law years. But we have to also realize that if there is only one entity that can help media address the problem of media killing, it should be the government. Because if we will just go on criticizing the government on its failure to solve media killings without working closely with the agencies concerned, there will not be one media killing that can be solved.
So what does the NPC think about, when President Duterte has this habit of delivering extemporaneous speeches, and sometimes he will say a thing or two about different media entities, no?
Yeah.
Ano yung tingin ng NPC sa ganoon?
Well, to begin with, some groups are saying we're now very close to Malacanang. In fact, I'm also being bashed for being a puppet of the palace, no.
Okay.
But
Where are your
let me point out that
looking at the strings.
let me point out that we are among the first media group in the county to criticize the president back in May 2016 when a media member was killed, who incidentally was also a member of the press club, who's that guy again who was shot in Santa Cruz, Manila, when the president said that all members of the press are being killed because they are corrupt. You remember that incident. The National Press Club was the very first media group to criticize the president on that.
Oh, well, you brought it up, no? People are bashing you for being a puppet. What is it that you were supposed to have said, or what were your accusations that made people think that you are a puppet of the administration?
Well, because maybe I go against the general sentiment various media groups in the country when I, with due respect to Ms. Reza here, when I
Talagang
said
due
that-
respect kasi katabi mo.
when I stated the position of the National Press Club that all responsible members of the media should follow the rule of law, should observe the law, the law, and I'm referring to the SEC decision adverse against Rappler.
And what would be wrong with a statement like that?
I don't know. I am really surprised that because some media groups are suddenly saying that this is what happened to Rappler is a violation of press freedom, of freedom of expression. I really.
It's not. It's not.
No, it's not. As
No,
far as we're
what is
concerned,
it?
it's not.
What is it?
Well,
How would you define it?
What happened to Rappler? Well, they just have they were just found to be violating the law, and not only the law but the Constitution. So if one media entity is found to be at fault with the law, then how can that be a violation of press freedom or suppression of press freedom when there are thousands of media entities in the Philippines?
Okay. Melinda Quintos de Jesus.
Yeah. Of course, you are entitled to your opinion.
That's right.
I thought perhaps that when you said this is how we look at it, but you went only according to the language of the SEC ruling. There was no attempt, Paul, with all due respect, it seemed to me to have reflected the side of Rappler and how in those many days they tried to present how they were trying to address the issues that were raised with them with the SEC. So I thought that was a little too fast perhaps on your part. Those who already said this is a step against press freedom basically reflected the pattern that had already been formed. One, the threatening of journalists, the calling out against journalists, the name calling, the insults. It had become an environment, I'm sorry, you'd have to say, of hostility towards the media. I mean, we already know what happened to the Inquirer. Things were always being found where the media could not, or the organizations that were being targeted could not present their side. Because it is difficult to present their side once you have created an environment of hostility, which has happened due to the great popularity of the president, the avid support that he gets in social media. Social media, however, that has been used to troll the press, to question the credibility of the press. You have been a member of the press.
Yeah.
You yourself should be sensitive to the fact that there was this whole wave of post-campaign. And the reason I use post-campaign is because it was started by many personalities who were already active during the campaign. And some of them persisted, and some of them are now even members of media. Present company, perhaps.
Okay. Yusek Egko, you're going to respond to that
Yeah.
in just a bit. We're going to have to go to a short break first. This is On the Record. We'll be right back. On the record, Joel Egko, a rebuttal from you right away. You have 30 seconds.
I don't know who to rebut eh.
Okay, na, ayaw mo na.
Or you have the whole entire program.
Well, this is how it works, with me. No? If you're going to ask me about my position here as a government official, well, the president himself has clearly articulated his position on the issue of Rappler. Also with my other boss, Postman Harry Roque. Okay, however, in the context of my position now as the executive director of the task force on media security, ganito po kasi, this is how things work in the task force. No? Sila po pareho kasama ko sa task force. The CMFR, the NPC,
Yeah.
the OSG, the DOJ,
Yeah.
magkakasama po yan lahat. So, the way I see it, I respect Paul's opinion. I respect the opinion of Miss Maria Reza. Of course, our mentor, I respect the opinion of Miss Melinda here. And of course, let us not forget, we also have to respect the opinions of the people outside the studios. For instance, I also read the SEC decision. And after reading the SEC decision, I followed closely the statements made by Ms. Reza. and other news organizations for that matter. No.
Okay.
So to give me a clearer view of what's really happening.
Yeah.
So I acknowledge that there is plurality of views here. There's a wide spectrum of opinions, and it is good that we're talking about it right now. But
All right.
if I'm going to impose my belief on somebody else's belief, then
Yeah.
that's the end of press.
Okay, wait. I have to declare martial law. We don't have time. Maria, you want to respond first? I know, of course, there is that you brought it already to the Court of Appeals, etc. But you may want to point out a few things.
I would just say, please, sub judice rule already holds me in
That's right.
close quarters, but the petition is online, our response to it.
Yeah.
And aside from that, of course, I echo Melinda that on a bigger picture, I think it's the pattern. Forget Rappler. It's not about Rappler. Let's just look at the pattern of online state-sponsored hate that is actually plagued us since
Yeah.
mid-2016.
All right, we have 2 minutes, and I wanted to go into this question about dahil merong responsibility, you know, the word responsibility, and I want to know from the four of you, what do we mean by a responsible media? Because there is that belief also kasi na yes, I mean, for us to hold officials, people accountable, we have to hold ourselves to account also, and I guess this is also what Rappler is finding itself in, the situation. So, Maria, can you tell us how would you define a responsible media?
I don't think the definitions have changed in the last few decades. That is, we have standards and ethics manuals that actually hold us, journalists, accountable. That is shared with our public. The public holds us accountable. Yeah. I think the big difference here has been the growth of technology and a plurality of views to the point of near chaos. And then when the plurality of views are weaponized in a particular way, I think what we need to remember is, in the end, journalists hold power accountable because state has vast resources.
Yeah.
And we are proxies for people who now have their own views and are able to express it online.
Yeah, right. Wait. Can you also address that issue about, I mean, some people have said, as journalists, we are not above the law either.
We're never above the law. And I would challenge, I've spent my entire life professionally as a journalist. I've never broken the law. Whether I'm in Indonesia, taxes are paid, so again, I would challenge this.
Okay, I wish we had more time, but again, it's martial law here today. So, 20 seconds. So, how would you define a responsible media?
Well, basically...
So you have 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'll just have to go along with the definition of Reza here.
Okay. Ma'am, Melinda?
I think to be responsible, you have to be free. And you have to realize what your obligations are. These obligations actually are based on having to verify what you present, especially when these are negative reports.
Okay.
You have to verify.
Okay.
But larger than that is that responsibility also needs to recognize that there are many members of society, and the press always misses that because the press also becomes part of the elite, part of the power structure. So responsibility in itself means true to the mandate of journalism, which is accuracy, fairness, verification, context, and being just even to the subjects that you are trying to expose for the wrongdoing that they have.
You said, Joel.
Yes, responsible journalism. I often ask a lot of journalists this, if they're familiar with the Code of Ethics. And they say, yes, so what's the first letter? They don't know. So for me, practicing the highest standards of, the highest ethical standards and professionalism among journalists should start, from them reciting the code by heart, not only by mind. At least I can recite one paragraph, yung first paragraph. But the others, they don't even know the first letter.
Yeah, but above and beyond that, of course, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. That's very important. Well, thank you to our guests. Sorry, no time to say all your names, pero maraming salamat. That's it for tonight. Thank you for your time. I'm Pia Ontiveros. This is On the Record.